can't you lead a good life without believing in Christianity? The question sounds as if it were asked by a person who said to himself, I don't care whether Christianity is in fact true or not.
Well, that depends on what you mean by not caring. For example, I cannot care whether or not Christianity is true. So long as it is reasonable and there's enough evidence and enough reason to believe in it. Of course, I could not care about certain things, like if I were to make thousands upon thousands of assumptions, and some of them might be right. However, just because they're true doesn't mean it's reasonable to believe in them, and in that sense, I don't care whether or not they're true. And then again, there are people who, despite all the evidence, despite all the good reasons, still don't believe in certain things because they don't want to. They don't care. Kind of like how some people deal with evolution. So tell me, what kind of not caring are you talking about?
I'm not interested in finding out whether the real universe is more like what the Christians say than what the materialists say.
Oh, okay. So, people who ask that question give you the impression that they are of the third kind of not caring. That's so fair. And perhaps more importantly, I would like to just state that it is not a true dichotomy that there is Christianity and materialism. There are a wide variety of other options, plus the fact that Christians can be materialists.
All I'm interested in is leading a good life.
You know, I have never met anybody who has told me they're just trying to live a good life. But even if someone did say that to me, why should I care? Why should anybody have to do better than their best?
I'm going to choose beliefs not because I think them true, but because I find them helpful.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but was that supposed to be a refusal of pragmatism? Because if so, that was really, really weak. But if not, I still am unsure what you're trying to get at. After all, I'm not a molecular biologist. I don't study pharmacy. But if I get a headache, will I take a headache pill? Yes, I will. I will. But even though I do that, do I need to know how it works? Am I interested?
One of the things that distinguishes man from the other animals is that he wants to know things, wants to find out what reality is like, simply for the sake of knowing.
I would just like to point out that you didn't say all things, all people, all the time, or anything else that might encompass, allness. Just an observation. You never know when it might become useful.
When that desire is completely quenched in anyone, I think he has become something less than human.
I don't know your specific beliefs, but most Christians would say that God is omniscient, which would mean that his thirst for knowledge has been completely quenched. Are you implying he's less than human?
Christianity claims to give an account of facts.
Yeah, Christianity claims to have the facts, but so do other religions. So one has to ask oneself how one differentiates between the claims of one religion from the claims of another. And I'm dying to know. Well, actually, no, I'm not dying to know. But there are some people who are dying to know.
Tell you what the real universe is like. Its account of the universe may be true, or it may not.
And here we have false dichotomy number 2! Well, kind of. There are such things as relativists, and although I'm not one, some people are pretty good at making arguments for certain types of relativism, like moral relativism or weak relativism. So I find it interesting that you pragmatically chose to talk about this only in the scope that the law of non-contradiction and the law of the excluded middle are universal in all cases, even though some would disagree.
And once the question is really before you, then your natural inquisitiveness must make you want to know the answer.
Yeah, you remember when I talked about how you never said any kind of all statement. That was for this statement here. There are people who are very interested in questions like, is there a God? Does life have meaning? If so, what is it? Questions like that. Then again, there are people who don't find much interest in those kind of questions. And honestly, what does it matter?
If Christianity is untrue, then no honest man will want to believe it, however helpful it might be. If it is true, every honest man will want to believe it, even if it gives him no help at all.
Possibly. It's debatable, but I would say only if it's reasonable to believe it.
As soon as we have realized this, we realize something else. If Christianity should happen to be true, then it is quite impossible that those who know this truth and those who don't should be equally well equipped for leading a good life.
Okay, I've let you go on long enough without raising this question, but as a listener, I don't know what you mean by good life. Do you mean a morally good life? Are you speaking from an Aristotelian sense, in which case there's an objective goal for humanity as a race, for each individual? And depending on what you mean, I may or may not disagree with you. And furthermore, depending on what you mean, I might be able to say that, yes, someone who is unaware of Christianity can live a good life, depending on the denomination, of course.
Suppose you found a man on the point of starvation and wanted to do the right thing. If you had no knowledge of medical science, you would probably give him a large, solid meal, and as a result, your man would die.
For the most part, I would agree with you. Most people generally would probably give the poor homeless man a meal, and in doing so, might cause some harm. But here's the kicker. We don't live in a one-person society. There are other people around us. If the man should fall ill, we can take them to the hospital to get help from others who do know what to do. I think what you're trying to get at is this. If we're not experts in things like philosophy, science, theology, we're going to come across very large problems from our ignorance. And yes, this happens, but I think you're overgeneralizing a lot.
That is what comes of working in the dark. In the same way, a Christian and a non-Christian may both wish to do good to their fellow men. The one believes that men are going to live forever, that they were created by God, and so built that they can find their true and lasting happiness only by being united to God. The other believes that men are an accidental result of the blind workings of matter.
Accidental? I don't think scientists would say that it happened by accident, especially because accident implies intention. So you're already assuming there was intention for us in the first place, which you haven't even given evidence for.
Where the materialist would simply ask about a proposed action, will it increase the happiness of the majority? The Christian might have to say, even if it does increase the happiness of the majority, we can't do it. It is unjust.
Actually, I would say most of your materialists would argue that going with the evidence and teaching things based on what we have found as best as we know is probably better, even if it doesn't make the majority happy. For example, evolution versus creationism. There's tons of evidence for evolution, yet it could be that most people are unhappy with it. So what?
To the materialist, things like nations, classes, civilizations must be more important than individuals, because the individuals live only 70-odd years each, and the group may last for centuries. But to the Christian, individuals are more important, for they live eternally, and races, civilizations, and the like are, in comparison, the creatures of a day.
Ooh, this is right up my alley. I'm going to make a language analogy. Alright, so what you're saying is, as a Christian, you believe that words are more important than sentences because words make it into the dictionary and therefore are more eternal. But I would say that without sentences, words are pretty meaningless. I'm not saying that sentences are more important, though, because without words, those are pretty, well, they're meaningless too. After all, they're just empty shells. So why should we have to decide between people and society when society is made up of people and ideally it's for the people?
Surely God, if there is a God, will not punish a man for honest mistakes.
Not necessarily. It depends. Is your God forgiving? All forgiving? Would he or she or it forgive, I don't know, not believing in said deity?
Are we ready to run the risk of working in the dark all our lives?
Yes, we have to be working in the dark. You want to know why? Because not everything is predictable. Because we don't know everything. Every time you go in a car, you risk getting into a car crash. But yet, you do it. Why? Because of deductive reasoning, because of inductive reasoning, and because of probability. Because of those things. We rationalize things, we reason things, and thanks to pragmatism, natural pragmatism of the human mind, we do things. And yes, there's uncertainty, but it's okay. You don't have to be 100% certain. Certainty is a red herring as far as I'm concerned, because it's an emotion just to put your mind at ease.
Doing infinite harm?
Infinite harm? How can I, as a finite being, possibly do infinite harm to anybody? At least anybody other than myself. Are you saying that the Christians who say you put yourself in hell, you punish yourself for by not believing, that those Christians are wrong?
That no one will punish us or blame us?
Do you only do things out of fear of punishment? And if there weren't any punishment, things wouldn't matter to you anymore? I'm the Philosoglot. There's part 2 right here. Click on it. You should probably watch the rest of this. You already started, why not? I just separated them so that way the videos wouldn't be too long. So, enjoy!